The Rings of Power has not yet proven the stranger's identity, but after watching the first 3 episodes of Season 2, I am even more convinced that he is Gandalf. Daniel Wayman's character makes a dramatic debut in The Rings of Power Season 1, falling into Middle-earth via meteor during the show's premiere. Since he has magic and no memory, Wayman may be an Astari from The Lord of the Rings. After Season 1 of The Rings of Power ended, many fans, including myself, became convinced that he was Gandalf. Unfortunately, the Amazon show has yet to confirm or deny the popular stranger hypothesis. During The Rings of Power Season 2's 3-part debut, Nori attempts to give the wizard a name, but he still lacks one by the end of Episode 3. The Lord of the Rings production is purposefully concealing the stranger's identity, possibly to build suspense for the big reveal. However, based on the character's portrayal in The Rings of Power Season 2, I am almost confident he is Gandalf. The stranger acts much more like Gandalf in The Rings of Power Season 2. Season 1 of The Rings of Power makes it difficult to accept the idea that the stranger is Gandalf because Wayman's character is so unlike the wizard we know and love. When the stranger first crashes on Middle-earth, he is unable to communicate and knows very little about how to connect with others or use his own powers. The Gandalf we see in The Lord of the Rings is attractive and competent. He is a far cry from Wayman's ungainly and frequently out-of-control magician. His interactions with Nori and Poppy feel much more natural in Season 2, with the stranger treating the Harfoots with warmth, almost like a grandpa. However, the stranger's characterization in The Rings of Power Season 2 improves significantly. After witnessing how the new episodes represent him, I'm confident that the series is leading up to Gandalf's unveiling. His interactions with Nori and Poppy feel much more natural in Season 2, with the stranger treating the Harfoots with warmth, almost like a grandpa. He jokes with them and goes out of his way to keep them safe, much like Gandalf did for Frodo and his companions in The Lord of the Rings. This makes the stranger feel like the Grey Wizard. The Rings of Power already hinted that the stranger is Gandalf. Throughout The Rings of Power Season 1, there are various hints that the stranger is Gandalf, so it's no wonder that he's beginning to behave more like the Lord of the Rings figure. Even although his personality differs from Gandalf's in the first film, the stranger shares remarkable similarities with Frodo's mentor. His physical appearance is reminiscent of Gandalf the Grey, and he forms an effortless connection with the Harfoots, much like Gandalf did with the hobbits in The Lord of the Rings. The stranger's magic is similar to Gandalf's, as seen in The Rings of Power Season 1, where he mutters to fireflies. This moment feels similar to Gandalf whispering to the moths in the Fellowship of the Ring. In the Rings of Power episode Aloyd, the stranger transforms particles into moths. The character's closing sentence in The Rings of Power Season 1 also alludes to Gandalf's admonition to Merry in the first Lord of the Rings film. He tells Nori to always follow your nose, as he does with the other Hobbit years later. Is The Rings of Power trying to deceive us about the stranger's identity? Throughout the first season of The Rings of Power, the stranger is often referred to be Gandalf, but I have to question if the series is attempting to deceive us by being so direct. Given that the show goes to such lengths to conceal his identity, it seems strange that it would heavily emphasize the stranger's relationship to Gandalf. This diminishes the impact of the surprise, which is the sole explanation for the stranger's unidentification in The Rings of Power Season 2. The reveal of Sauron in Rings of Power Season 1 was likewise not that stunning, so perhaps the writers are taking the similar approach with the stranger. Given that the Sauron reveal in The Rings of Power Season 1 wasn't particularly stunning, it's possible that the writers are adopting a similar approach with the stranger. It's possible that the Lord of the Rings series intentionally builds up the Gandalf revelation. It's difficult to imagine who else the stranger could be, although there are other Astari to select from. I'm hoping The Rings of Power Season 2 confirms the stranger's identity soon, as there's no reason to prolong the suspense.